How do you have this much energy?
After standing in front of students all day.
Perfect. Welcome to Spooled, everyone, the podcast from your favorite Northern Michigan fly shop, The Northern Angler. I'm your host, Matt Hartman, joined by my good friends, Brian Pitzer and Joe King.
Hey, thanks a lot, Matt. We are excited for
This is going to be a fun...
lucky number 27.
Yeah. Glad to be back.
Wow, that's a pretty good... It's a good radio voice.
You have such a good radio voice. Come
Thanks,
up with
guys.
something real quick.
Hey,
It's too bad you have to do that face, though, when you do it.
Yeah.
Dude,
No, it's rough.
You should be a cartoon
It's
character
rough.
guy.
Hey guys, I actually have had a lot of people say that to me.
You should.
I can see that.
I love this tire pump you guys are giving me right
We're
now.
like 3 seconds into the episode,
Okay.
and
I
way
feel
off
great.
topic.
I
So
feel
today
amazing.
we're jumping in the time machine. Like I'm imagining it looking like a drift boat, and we're getting in, and we're going down that like Willy Wonka tunnel of time. That tunnel freaked me out as a kid, by the way. I don't know about you guys.
I don't know, man. Those childhood movies between Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka, some scary shit. Ricky Tikki Tavi, snakes. It was terrifying.
Snakes.
Yeah, I mean,
Those flying monkeys were.
flying monkeys were
Anyways,
terrifying.
we're going to talk about some trends in the fly fishing world that have come and gone. And I'm excited also to talk about what we think might be coming in the future as a trend. I'm going to ask you, we're going to go to the past and then the present and then the future. It's a whole thing. Before we get there, though, we have some great questions from listeners. We got 2 this week, and I'm going to these are short discussions. I'm going to put it up to Brian and Joe and see kind of where we land on it. So one question we've gotten is, how long should a leader last you? And I'm also interested, how long do leaders last you guys? Because I think everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Well, as a fly shop owner, they last one use.
One outing.
One outing. And you need to replace it. Absolutely. Sometimes you might need to replace it 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I've actually had one of those days, and it's painful.
I've had those days too, Matt. But
yeah,
no, truly a leader for me, if I have like my Boardman River rod set up, that'll last me for, a good 2 weeks. I mean, if I'm not, depends on what type of modifications I'm throwing at it, but it can last a long time. Now, my bluegill leader, that can last pretty much all season.
Yeah. No, that's a good
and
point.
I do
depending
bluegill
on...
fish quite a bit, so.
Yeah, I would say it depends on a couple things, but I would say if you're like beginner angler, I just remember my first year and the amount, like so many leaders I went through because you just put knots in them from
Bad casts.
Yep, from bad casts.
Well, it's so windy.
No,
when
Brian,
you're
it's
a new
wind
angler.
knots. It's wind knots.
Right.
No,
It's so
all
windy
tell
up there.
ourselves.
man,
Yeah.
it's if you're in your first probably 2 years of fly fishing, I would say don't go on the water with less than 3 leaders. Because
My first 2 to 3 years of fly fishing, I didn't even know what a tapered leader was.
Dead silence, and we're just in shock here.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I mean, dude, I grew up in Indiana. We
Well,
didn't
I
have,
think
like,
it's all right. I think-
shops where
well,
Do what you do, man.
No, I think you're
Some
nailing it, because of all the stuff in here, right? It's the least exciting that is probably the most important part of your kit, and it's also maybe one of the most complicated, and it's the thing
so
no one wants to.
confusing.
It's like
Super.
sitting down and like being excited to do their taxes.
The
People aren't-
leader
people
thing,
don't do that.
When
so.
I first got started in this, and I didn't know there was a taper leader, and they were like trying to explain it to me,
Yeah.
I was just like this.
Oh, totally.
What? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I
Like,
mean, I see people
X's, 4X,
glaze
3 times.
over.
Is this 3
Panicked.
times? Is this, what is this, 6 pound? I can relate to that because I, grew up spinning, fishing.
Yeah.
Bait
It's
casting.
tough. I would just say before we make this the whole episode,
We're not going to make this the whole
invest time
episode.
in understanding leader and tippet. It'll pay off. I would say the life of your leader depends greatly on how you treat it and what you do after you're done.
sun exposure.
And water, yeah. For now.
Like come up with a system for yourself. I mean, if it's not a rod you fish often, leave a note to yourself what's on there, or take it off and put it back in the package.
If it's milky looking,
Yeah.
just take it off,
Yep.
know? Like, once it kind of changes color, done.
Yeah, if you can, I was going to say that, Brian, if you can see through it, which like for other people that might tie their own, like you can probably use the butt section of a hand-tied leader for quite a while. But yeah, that if it looks cracked, kind of opaque,
You got to get
ditch
rid
it.
of it. Or if it has big kinks in it that you can't work out.
For like from the shop employee thing, because I'm only here in the summers and we get a lot of people who are just just getting into it. One thing that would be very helpful for me in conversations is whether or not understand whether or not you feel comfortable yet tying on extensions onto your leaders.
Sure.
And that helps us a lot with recommending the appropriate leader, because if
That's a good point, Joe.
if you don't know how to add to it, we're going to give you a different product than if you do feel comfortable.
So
and if it's not something it's a great
need,
skill to add in the winter.
Clearly, we need a leader podcast.
I think we need a 100%. Podcast.
We'll all be wearing our reading glasses for that one. So let's jump to the next one. This one I'm excited about because this is such an individual thing. So what is the best, or have you all found a good way when you've cut a fly off and you're going to change it to keep track of that fly so it doesn't fall into the abyss, if you will, and just get lost? What's your system, guys? I'm curious.
That's different for me wading versus in a boat. In a boat, I just throw them in a cup holder.
Right, the boat's
it becomes
convenient.
a mess. But the key there is, as soon as you can, get them separated, especially if you're fishing streamers, stuff with a lot of dye in it, because they will kind of cross dye. Especially,
I get some of my most unique looking flies that way.
Yeah, and they ruins my confidence in them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Otherwise, when I'm wading or if I'm fishing smaller stuff out of a boat, I always have a foam patch nearby where I can stick them in it. Foam that's in good condition, that doesn't have a bunch of holes in it. Otherwise, the flies will fall out. But yeah, just foam patch, silicone patch, something to lock the hook in and make sure I can dry it safely.
Sure. Brian?
Well, I mean, I just went through this after Cuba, right?
Yeah.
So you cut off the flies, any saltwater flies especially. I use a plastic container for my saltwater flies, and I take them back and I rinse them. So all my flies that I used on my trip right now are drying out on my kitchen island, and then the ones that I'm going to put back into my box, I make sure they're super dry.
Yeah.
Because I think so many times all of us have made this mistake as rookies, or even we get lazy, throw a fly that's not all the way dry back in our fly box.
Absolutely.
And next thing you know, you have rust.
Yep.
And rust is a fly angler's worst nightmare, especially if you've taken all that time to tie those flies.
Right.
Or you have a killer
or you've
fly
invested.
collection.
You've paid
You've
for
paid
quality
good
flies
money,
and good hooks.
right?
But
And and you should collect those over time. So it's really important to keep track of those flies, and make sure they're fully dried out.
yeah, take care of your investment.
And this is a great time of year to go through all your old fly
It
boxes and make sure you
is.
didn't get lazy.
Yep.
And what Joe said about those colors bleeding, that's really important.
Yeah.
A couple other things. Even if it's a box that or like a box of flies that I know I didn't touch, but if I'm waiting and I know that I might have gotten water on my pack or vest or whatever,
Sure.
take everything out, and I usually put it on my kayak or a bench in your garage or down the basement, whatever. Open up those boxes and let them breathe.
Yes.
And then if you are going to check your hooks, a good tip is because a lot of our flies, they have quite a bit of dressing near the bend, is to lift that up, because a lot of times that material will keep water, and where you'll get rust is right at the bend. And
That's a good point.
Had it where it'll break right there pretty easy, and you wouldn't see it. If it gets that bad, you're probably going to see it, but it's a good thing to if you got a bunch of marabou back there or some other material, just check just to make sure.
Yeah.
I have this thing. I hate if I have a pack that has, kind of the workbench idea, and there's a foam patch on the inside. Oh man, that thing's a black hole.
That is
Take that
such
thing
a
out
black
and
hole.
frisbee it away, because
No, that's such a black hole. I've done the same thing. I opened mine, from like a trip ago, like for my fanny pack. I was thinking about taking, and I'm like opening it up. I'm like, gosh, that's a rusted mess.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Like,
you don't see
not
it
even
and it's
something
gone.
that I thought of, whatever saltwater trip that was, and those flies were just demolished.
I would rather throw them in the bottom of my pack,
Right.
Yeah.
and then grab them at the end. My thing I try to do is I keep a foam patch in the center console, and I get back to the car's warming up, whatever, I'm de-wadering, and I try and stick the flies in this foam patch on my dash, and then air starts to circulate.
That's a great way to dry out.
And then, I can set them in my, with my stuff, and then put them in the box once they're totally dry and whatnot. It's It's an easy thing to do. Plus, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
If people walk by your car like, oh, that dude fishes for sure. Look at that.
Dude, that's like saying, like, it looks really cool.
Sorry.
We're
There's
like
a hint
Star
of
Trek
sarcasm in there,
geeks.
guys.
We're like Star Trek geeks, like, oh, that guy must be part of the Force or whatever. You
I
know?
mean, so I was just fishing with Casey. He totally
Another Jedi.
like
What do your bumper
walked
stickers
by.
say about you?
He totally walked by the cars and was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, he's got this on the dash." I'm like, "Dude, get away! What are you doing?"
Right. I mean, but it's like so funny. What
like,
do your
slap
bumper
his hand.
stickers like? What do your bumper stickers say about you?
Obviously, that I catch way more fish than you.
Huge fly fisherman.
Oh, are you part of the meat temple? Temple of meat.
I'm actually a deacon in the Temple of Meat.
Rule number one about Temple of Meat is you don't talk about Temple of Meat.
I broke it.
All praise the meat.
Oh my gosh.
All right. What is our main topic tonight, Matt?
Main topic. So main topic today, we're hopping in the time machine. We're going back and talking about trends that we've seen come and go. And then maybe we put on our little tinfoil prediction hats and see what.
Where's
What are
Casey
the
Damas?
future?
I know this is a Damas episode.
This is. He's up.
He would just
man.
he would just dominate. The Damas would dominate.
All right. So what trends in gear? You guys are a little bit younger than I am, quite a bit actually. And
No.
so you know the trends in gear. Right. I went from let's see, everybody wore a Filson style hat and a vest and gray light waders.
So I'm curious. I
I
have
mean,
to
you
ask.
weren't a flying lure if you didn't have a vest.
I have to ask about vest and like bag pack. How it's really moved forward. What's the fabric changed like? That I know that's a really nerdy thing, but
No,
what was
I mean, gosh, you know,
what were vest fabrics like?
they were
Just
heavy cotton.
Heavy. That's what I
Well,
thought.
I mean, everybody was in hip boots and jeans.
That's
Or
right.
gray light waders. Nobody. I mean, you like
No
how
chest
many,
waders
How
or
many
anything?
times do I show up to a stream and my clients don't still to this day don't know about how to properly layer?
Yeah. Well, it's a
You know,
different
synthetic
different
fabrics,
program
like so you still have that mindset. You
and
know,
great
like,
natural fabrics.
and absolutely wool.
Wool's
But the you
underrated.
know, like you had wax cotton,
Yeah.
right? And then Sims came out with like the breathable wader. And then
When was breathable? If you had to guess, just guess. It's not a big deal. Like,
man, that had to be late 80s, early 90s.
okay, just curious. So I mean,
But you know,
really, it's fairly recent
it's
in the
very
sport.
recent. Yeah,
So,
in the
and I feel like
sport.
it's changed very quickly, and we see things change very quickly in the gear world now.
Oh,
the
my gosh.
turnover is insane sometimes. I feel bad for consumers.
The
It's tough
technology
to keep
is
track of.
amazing. When I get in stuff, you know, like any of our modern fabrics, right? Gore-Tex, wool, fleece, all that stuff. You know, all the different types of insulation. And think of how cold I used to be.
Really, that's really interesting.
I mean, but I did wear a lot of wool. Wool
Okay.
has always been a staple.
It's been
I would
reliable.
say,
Hasn't changed
you know,
a whole
in the
lot.
insulation. I mean, it's just how they've refined it.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
used to be old, itchy, heavy army
Yep, thick.
surplus stuff. Right? Or
Boiled.
Pendleton shirts, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have a ton of those because they were great. They were warm.
Sure.
But, you know, I think the trends in fabrics and stuff like that, for sure.
I'm really curious. This is going to be actually a separate episode. I will tease it now because I'm curious. And this
What are you
gives me,
curious about, Matt?
actually it's really interesting because you brought up, you know, before breathable waders and before some of the more modern fabrics we have now and modern insulation. And you were talking about how cold you were. Well, you know, I had this thought the other day because if you don't know, I kind of come from a different outdoor world before I came straight to fishing. It was kind of, you know, boating and hiking and backpacking and that kind of, you know, a little bit different. And there's a lot of technical outerwear there, but the heat generation is much different. And where you're moving constantly,
Right.
in fishing, you spend so much time static, not in dynamic movement. So, I mean, we do, but nothing like going for a hike or, you know, something like that. And so it's always interesting that a lot of our fabrics in the fishing world share similar technology. And I don't know. It makes me wonder, are we overthinking it, sometimes for how little we move sometimes. But that's going to be a separate episode we're going to talk about, because I've seen people move to a classic commercial rain jacket that's, maybe it's not high tech and doesn't have great pockets, but because it's a natural moisture, or not natural, but it's a moisture barrier.
As long as you can stay dry.
Right. So
no matter how you stay dry.
Yeah.
If you can stay dry, you're going to stay comfortable. And if it's not 90 degrees out and you're wearing a plastic rain suit and it keeps you dry when it's cold, you're probably going to stay, especially if you have some of the modern layers with moisture out to that outer layer. It would be like wearing a pair of neoprene waders. You're going to, eventually get that chill factor, and none of that moisture pushes out, and now you're going to feel cold and clammy.
Right.
And you're done.
And you have to watch it.
You're done
like
at that
how much
point.
you're moving.
Then
right?
at that point, you're like risking hypothermia.
Yep. So it's, I don't know, just an interesting thought about how that has progressed over the years in terms of fabrics, because I think you hit it, because modern fabrics give us such a big margin of error. And with some of the older fabrics, I'm starting to get warm. Oh, you better slow down, because you're going to start to sweat. You're going to have more moisture and you're going to get cold real fast.
You're going to get cold.
That's interesting. I mean, how would you say like pack technology and vest technology and stuff like that has changed? Has it?
So I went from, from a vest to like Filson made this pack. And the cool thing about it was just a square pack on the front, but it had like, the classic Filson leather, and it had a, sheep's wool fly tying patch on the front that was, pinned to it. And you had enough room for like 5 or 6 fly boxes in there. No loops, just pretty simple, zipper. And on the back, it had a net keeper, and you could pack your rain jacket in there, or a 6-pack of beer, and
nice.
and a sandwich. And you could go out and be set for the day with that. And it was balanced pretty well on the shoulders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the trend back in the day was everybody carried their entire, like, library of flies with them on the stream.
Sure.
Right? So you remember those big, like you see it, still see
the
them in
accordion.
Eastern, the fly boxes that have like 5,000 patterns
They're so
in
cool.
them. They are so cool, but like, what's the practicality of that? You fall in, how are you going to dry all that shit out, right?
Yeah.
So
that's true.
The big thing was simplification. So trends in fly boxes. How do you pack your box?
Yeah.
And then, then gear bags. Everybody had like the Able gear bag, right? That was like, then you put all your fly boxes in there, and you might take a few out and put them in like a cup or whatever, a smaller box, because you're only going to be out for a few hours. It's going to be pretty predictable, and you could kind of go from there.
It seems like the gear storage solutions we have today are a lot more specific to. I mean, we very much feel the designer's intentions. Like, this spot is specifically for this thing. Does it feel that way? I mean,
absolutely no. It's
which in some
super
ways,
well thought out.
Like, is really cool. It's like, wow, you came up with. How did you come up with this to hold this in this one spot that's perfect?
Fish Pond, when they started coming out, I mean, there was like JW Outfitters. There were all these different companies that kind of led to where we are now. And I mean, it still continues to evolve. I mean, packs, sling packs, chest packs.
Joe, what'd you start with for a pet? Did you start with a vest?
Vest for sure. Yeah, I mean, growing up in PA, it was like, if you're not in hip boots and jeans, you probably don't catch fish.
And you had to have your license on the back of your vest, right?
Absolutely. Well, that was a hot contention thing. So hunting, it was on your back.
Oh.
For most people, for fishing, it was off the back of your hat, but not straight off the middle. It was off to one side or the other.
Oh,
interesting.
That was the big thing. Some people did do it on their backs, but
is that kind of like flat brim versus creased?
Exactly.
In modern society?
Exactly. Yep. And if you had on chest waders, you were either too highfalutin, or you probably didn't know what you were doing. And so everybody, now granted, I grew up worm dunking, so, that's where I come from. But
sounds like
it was definitely old school vest.
Sounds like you caught some fish.
yeah.
I didn't.
No,
I didn't.
that's why you happily got into fly fishing.
Some things don't. Yeah. Some things
Now I
don't.
have an excuse.
Some things don't change, guys. I just want to look the part. I don't actually want to do it. So
Yeah.
no. Yeah, I'd say like even since, I haven't been at this thing for that long. But the options for format of carrying gear seem to be way different. Like you said, with the
Well, and they're
slings,
so
hip packs,
expansive. I mean,
chest packs, day chest packs, like
hip packs. There's endless
modular
ways to carry your stuff
Well,
and
and
systems that work together.
Yeah.
And as a shop owner, I think you should have a vest for a certain part of your season. Then you should have a pack for each of the different things that you pursue.
Well, in each part of the day too.
Right.
Yeah.
I did
Or the week. Or,
having
Sorry.
a couple of those
Again,
is nice.
No, but it is
Sarcasm.
actually nice to. It is nice to like separate out like your
Oh, yeah.
migratory fish stuff or your warm water stuff.
we talked
And then
about
your
this
trout.
yesterday.
Yeah.
And this will be, again, this is another episode we have
Yeah.
planned is there is not a perfect pack. It does
Definitely.
not exist.
Not the perfect boat either. Not the
No,
perfect boat.
it's not. And I tune my packs to how I'm fishing. Like, if I'm nymphing or where I'm changing stuff a lot, the last thing I want is a sling, personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
I lose my mind.
But-
So what do you go with in that situation?
Chest
Matt?
pack.
Chest for
pack.
sure.
Yep. Or a vest. Vest is nice. I think that, speaking of trends that kind of faded and now are kind of coming
Well,
back into focus,
they
the
kind of-
vest thing is coming back a
I
Kind
little
of
never-
bit.
teeter-totters
To be
a little
honest,
bit.
I never knew why they went away. Because the
Because-
fish pond vests are sweet.
Because slings were so heavily marketed, I think,
Could be.
as we all want to emulate what we see as, the cool thing, because I say it all the time, probably every episode, we're trying to buy confidence. We do that.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
And if you see other anglers doing that who are catching fish, maybe I need to do that. But a vest is
Buying
great.
confidence?
Yeah, I think some of us try and buy confidence.
Or I at least would definitely agree with trying things in the attempt at gaining. Like other people are doing
Efficiencies.
this.
I think more than anything, we change around to become more efficient.
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
value
man,
our
that's
time on the stream. So why do you you have the pre-rig spools? You have everything is so much more set up for you.
Yeah.
Like each vest used to be pretty individual. Like you had your nippers on one side. Now it's like pretty much set up for you. So this is exactly where everything is. And so you're quicker with your ties and you're back on the stream because your free time, let's look at it. Your free time's super valuable.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
everything.
I
Time
mean,
is everything.
Time is everything. What can't you get back? If you lose it, time, right?
So do you guys prefer the packs that where the layout's pretty much predetermined, or do you like the sort of symmetrical approach where you can kind of put things where you want?
I love predetermined.
See, this is why I like a chest pack. Personally, if I'm choosing between a vest and a chest pack, I like the chest pack because it's just a little bit more open to what I want to make it. Instead of having an individual pocket for every little thing, it's 1,000% my memory. All of you, I'm sure, have much better memories in terms of, yes, my floating, or my lens cleaner is on the inside, not quite all the way bottom inner pocket. I would lose my mind. Whereas a chest pack that has a little bit less organization but still generalized areas helps me be efficient.
Inside pockets, I don't really care. Like if you have a
Really?
specific place on an inside pocket, that's
You're
fine.
just talking strictly on like what you're hanging off the outside.
Yes. Hanging off the outside, I want options.
Your dangler.
Oh, so you
Yeah,
you
guess
have
so.
your tippet spools like in a certain area.
Tippet spools are inside, but like nippers,
If you don't know, Joe likes
temperature.
zingers.
Man,
Really?
How has the zinger technology changed, Brian? I'm curious.
I know I couldn't tell you because I've been buying the same Northern Angler ones for the last 3 or 4 years.
Hey, we just got more back in stock.
That's
and
right.
We have a double.
I'll take 6.
And we
Ooh,
have
yeah.
a double.
The double
So,
trouble one.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about flies a little bit. I love this one because I feel like
I love flies.
I love flies and I have a little bit more understanding of the progression. I would save the history of flies because I'm a giant fly nerd, and that's how I connected so many dots in this sport, is reading LaFontaine's book, reading, all
Selective trout.
reading all this stuff that
The best.
was
The
so
Bible.
fly focused. And I feel like because of that, I understand the history of that a little bit more. And I think being a fly tire demands that, you learn the history a little bit so that you can hopefully make something that works well for you with modern materials and, historic techniques.
Sometimes I feel like we see flies and they work, and it's like, how far can we get from things that actually look like trout food?
Oh, yes. I
How
love
crazy
playing
can we
what
get?
can we get away with.
Yeah. Well, there's part of that, like explain the purple haze, right? I mean,
Purple Haze, Patriots, Hippie Stompers.
right. I mean, think
Sure.
about
There's
but,
crazy.
trends in flies and tying. Before it was all hair, all natural fibers, right? That's a fly.
Yep.
And like, oh, what the hell? As soon as we introduced that
Oh,
foam,
yeah.
as soon as we saw that. I mean, what happened
Well-
what happened with the stimulator? I mean, that was like one of the top patterns in every shop.
Yeah.
I remember when we used to
You
sell
have to
flies.
have it, right?
Kessner ordered like a stimulator in every single color, like from purple to lime to orange to, it was amazing. And those flies caught so many fish. Those fish had never seen anything like it. And then you're like, oh, now all of a sudden you can't catch them on that. So I think we have to learn to, to innovate. I think all these fish, this is like way down a rabbit hole, but they get smarter and smarter each generation.
Sure.
The ones that don't eat flies as much, it's like, oh, why did grouse run now?
You're right.
Right?
It's an interesting thing.
It's like, oh, you can never get a pointed grouse anymore. There's pressure. The ones that all survive, oh, they learned how to run. So I think a lot of that has to do with pressure, because if you look at some of the simple nymphs and things of days, and I'm not saying they don't work.
Right.
I mean, a soft tackle is one of my most productive flies.
It's
so,
not.
I'm probably totally contradicting myself, but it's just not as much fun and not as sexy to fish.
No, Brian, I don't think you contradicted yourself, because I was going to say there's like a trend in getting away from things and innovating, but in the last, and it could just be because I'm tuned into this, but it feels like in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years maybe, there's like a rediscovering of, especially in the last couple, where again, it could just be because I'm exposing myself to it, but there's like a rediscovering those old, especially like soft tackles,
Like
a lot more
Catskill
people-
patterns and things
Right,
like that.
old school stuff.
But it's soft tackle is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
so many folks over the past 10 years have said, "Let me show you this thing," and they're showing me their box, and they've got all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, everything you could want except for. I'm like, yeah, we got this thing called a soft tackle. And they're like, this. There's like 2 materials on it. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, have you not fished? You've not heard of this? And they're like, no. I'm like,
The OG.
and then they'll come back and you're like, hey, you were right. I'm like, yeah, that thing crushes. And it's all about how you fish it too,
Right.
though, which, maybe that's the missing link with some of that and people finding confidence in it. But it's awesome to see stuff that we don't, maybe hasn't fallen out of our boxes, but has fallen out of the limelight because it's not
Well, I
sexy.
mean, when I first started, fishing at night, what'd you use? A muddler minnow, right?
Yep.
So the muddler minnow was the basis of all those different things to now the amphibious assault.
Sure.
Like Ed McCoy's foam and cool leg pattern. But I mean, that's before those fish didn't have the pressure. They didn't
Yeah.
have people out at night really doing it a whole lot because there weren't that many crazy people that
Right.
there are now, right?
I think in the fly world, there's probably one area that sees the most, change. Joe knows what I'm talking about.
Mate.
Hey, how was that alley
Temple
oop?
of
That was
Meat.
pretty good.
That was pretty good.
It's
For
decent.
those of you that might have missed it, because hopefully it doesn't make it into the show, I tried to alley-oop myself, and I broke my arm on the rim. I'll just say that.
we just
guy-
stared
Shot.
blankly,
We had a guy
quietly
in our
at Joe.
class that got his, class ring stuff. Yeah, we don't want to.
Yeah, it was tough.
Wow,
It was
really.
tough.
brutal
Yeah.
stuff.
We're recovering.
Anyways,
All right.
streamers, I think, see the most trend changes. and
they're fun to tie. They're super sexy.
Well, and materials
they catch
change,
fish.
and
the materials are huge for tying.
Materials
It's
are
so fun.
huge.
but gosh, I mean, how many years ago, Brian, we couldn't buy flies big enough for the shop.
Right.
People come in once a week. These aren't big enough. I'm like,
Well, I remember
it's a
like
7-8 inch fly. What
I remember
do you
when I
need?
first started guiding, and Kelly was here and Ray, and those guys were buddies. And Jim Heck came up with this like Madonna, which was a, like rabbit strip with a deer head. And a super simple tie, like total guide fly.
Yeah.
And it would move, like it would kind of twitter in the water. And Kelly came up like his first big one was the Zoo Cougar. And that thing was like a 2 or a 4. And you're like, wow, this is big.
Yeah.
This is really big.
Yep.
And now you look at that in our streamer bin, and you're like, wow, this is a baby fly.
This
On
little
a
thing.
low clear water day,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're looking for something subtle, here's
Yeah.
a Zoo Cougar.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was, and I remember like the first time fishing some of these flies with, sinking lines and going on the El Sable, going on the Pure Marquette and the Manistee. And it was like, wow, these fish have never seen anything like this because no person in their right mind who's a quote unquote fly fisherman would ever throw something like this. That would be blasphemy.
Right.
Oh, you're not fishing upstream to a rising fish with a dry fly? Are you kidding me? So, yeah. So streamers have really changed the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays in streamers, I feel like the window's like 3 to 5 inches, typically pretty natural. Like I hear a
Yeah.
lot of people fishing that.
Well, I mean,
That
I was just ordering flies for, there's already a mini dungeon, which is
Ooh,
quite popular. Now
love
there's
that.
a micro dungeon,
Well,
and the entire front hook is the head.
well, we have some, oh.
What's
the
smaller
other-
than micro though? What's next?
Mini micro.
Microscopic nano.
Oh,
Na-
nanotechnology.
I'm gonna write this down. This is good.
Nanotechnology.
This is good. This is
It
good,
would
guys.
be
It's a size-
electron microscope.
This is
It's a
good
size
stuff.
22 in the front.
But come
24
back
in
to
the
these
back.
notes a
You know,
day
the
later.
same
like,
thing with the
what
game
heck?
changers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game changers, we're seeing the same thing. A lot of that stuff, right? As the fish,
And not
They
that there's
used to see in the
not
big
there's
stuff.
there's not a place for giant stuff, but
Right.
I think that
tandem streamers.
oh yeah.
I mean, we used to be like big things that we had were like Carrie Stevens,
Yeah.
like a 12x long hook,
Wow.
Once in
right?
a while people come in looking for those. I'm
And it's like,
no,
wow, it's Rangeley style, Maine.
it's beautiful.
And beautiful. But you'd hook a big fish on those, and they were never going to get landed because of the
right.
the hook would pop
No
out.
chance.
Right.
Do you guys feel like, aside from size, do you feel like there's a trend in overcomplicating streamers?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you feel like there's a trend in simplifying them? Or do you think it's just people that have tied too complicated things are just trying to relax?
I don't know. I think
it's part of the
it's fun to
progression
tie.
though.
Those complicated
Super
things
fun.
are fun.
Yeah, they are
right?
fun.
I mean, it's like putting
It's a
together.
project.
So, Joe, when you were a kid, did you do snap type models to start with? Did you have the models? Did kids do models? No.
Legos. A lot of Legos. Had the
Okay.
big blocks and then went
Yeah,
to the little
big
blocks.
But you never did like, I'm going to build a battleship. I'm going to build an airplane or a.
I did do those, a few of those. Yeah.
Okay. So
Same sort of concept.
So we had models. So you'd start with
Yeah.
like the snap tight, and then you got to the super intricate.
Yeah.
This is going to take you 28 hours to, put together. And that's the same way with the streamers. We're all of that, like, oh, let's overcomplicate this
Oh,
and really challenge
That's our
ourselves.
culture. More is
Right.
better, right?
I feel like it's my trajectory with tying has gotten to be pretty similar to my Lego thing, where I'm like, I got the whole kit, built the whole kit. That's sweet. All right, now I'm just going to put the guy on the bike and like drive around the room real quick and just simplify it and get away with what you can.
How do you drive a hook around the room?
Well, Brian, it's a thing called imagination.
We're
And
all
I
about
usually
that.
when I tie a fly, I put it in my fingers and I go through the
I
air.
just
I
watched
love
the-
imagine it
I
catching
love
fish.
when we teeter on the edge
I
of
just-
just losing
I
everyone.
just watched that Mr.
Lego.
Rogers. I just watched the Mr. Rogers documentary. On
Yeah, yeah.
The plane ride back, and I like you just the way you are, Joe.
I want you to know you're
Yeah,
special.
I want you to know you are special.
Well, I think
I like you.
I'm just going to tie it back in and try and keep In terms of materials, I agree that
all synthetics now. I mean,
I'm seeing. I will see
trending the other way.
I hope it trends the other way.
I tell you that
because
we had some muskrat dropped off the other day.
Yeah,
I'm
excited
that
to use that.
So good.
But it is heavy synthetics,
brushes.
It's
flash,
and it's tough when someone has tied some amazing flies and they want to tie this pattern that uses bucktail or something natural. And I've never played with that.
But the Gray Ghost still works.
It does.
Still works.
It works great. I mean, there's some calf tail.
Mickey Finn.
Yep.
Mickey Finn.
Mickey Finn works great. There's some.
They still catch fish.
They still do.
Yeah.
And so
they just don't catch the fishermen.
I hope that naturals come back.
It'd be a fun trend.
It's fun to see because that's something fish are not seeing. Russ always said, tie your own flies, angler advantage.
Absolutely.
You're showing them something different.
100%.
And that's, he says a lot of things, but that one I believe. Yeah,
that guy can catch fish. He is one of the fishiest dudes I've ever met.
Trends and techniques?
Let's talk about trends and techniques because that's one, besides flies, I think that's one of the easiest things that people are aware of. I remember when I started working at the shop and people were coming in, they were looking for this rod that had no reel on it, that packed down to nothing. And they fit like in a pint glass. We had a display of them in a pint glass and they were just like a bouquet of them. Oh, that's what that was. Yeah. We have a sticker about that.
We do. But,
it has its time and place. It really does.
Think of backpacking. I think some of the
canoe
UP
trip
streams, canoe trip, perfect example. You don't want to pack down, survival type thing.
Yep. So but gosh, it was big.
It was.
I mean,
everybody wanted to do it.
The only part I'll truly make fun of, and you can stop listening if you want, it's okay. The flies.
Right. Oh, yeah.
People will come in looking
style.
for specific tenkara flies. Oh no, I can't fish a royal wolf on this thing. I'm like, come on. Yes, you can. You get out of here.
That was a bit.
That's what took it over the edge for me, I guess. So
I think that probably turned off a lot of people.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of. I mean, obviously, Euro nymphing has exploded. That's
that technique. Wow.
But we're in an interesting place where we're all coming back down to normalcy from COVID in terms of sport popularity. I don't know if that popularity and that technique is waning a little bit. It certainly feels that way, or if it's just there's less folks getting into it now and curious about it. Fly curious.
I feel like among people getting started, it's as popular as it ever was. Like it seems like it's the first thing a lot of people get into. They get into fly fishing via Euro nymphing, which like tenkara, main criticism you hear is it doesn't teach like the basic casting stroke and like the fundamental skills. I don't know though if it's less people getting. I don't know. That's a tough question.
I think fewer and fewer people. When you that made me think of this is fewer and fewer people. When I first got started, everybody was focused upon how do you learn how to cast, right? And people would spend so much time and energy and effort and take casting lessons and really focus upon their cast. Now it's all about, I need to catch fish.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, and I've seen...
you're not going to catch fish, as a fly angler with a fly rod and a fly reel without the cast. And so I think that's the biggest thing. The manufacturers have done an incredible job with fly rod improvements and line improvements. It is absolutely from everything. From, it's so specific, like, hey, here's a bass bug line. Yep. Oh, hey, here's a, line for your spay rod. It's amazing the line technology and the rod technology that is,
it's crazy.
In the past 30 years.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
I would say you guys hit on this a little bit is, how people are starting. And I've seen that change. When I started working at the shop, streamers were hot. Not only were they big, I'm a brand new angler. Well, I'm going to start with an 8-weight and I'm going to throw an 8-inch double deceiver and just go look for a hog, and
still see that.
I don't see it as much.
I don't see it as much.
I see people going straight to mousing though.
Yeah.
We do see that.
And everyone out there that's done that, we're not harping on you. We're just observing. It's interesting how that has progressed, how that's changed.
Well,
we all want to go catch a big fish. I mean,
absolutely.
Why wouldn't you? But know that you'll get some resistance from people because you're doing it different. That's it. So what? I mean,
that's what makes the world go round, right?
I learned dry fly fishing and indicator nymphing was the way I got into fly fishing. And yeah, it's weird when I see people just jumping into that, but they're having success, they're having fun, then good for them. That's fine. It's just interesting to see that.
One of the things too, I think, is the acceptance of warm water fishing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, because
really good point.
Man, that's what I grew up doing, because in Indiana we had farm ponds, we had warm, we had smallmouth rivers and things like that. And like you moved to Michigan, like, everybody was a trout fisherman. That was like, trout was like an institution. And now, like, we have incredible muskie, pike, bass, bluegill, everything.
And we have
it's amazing.
And we have the gear to back it up. I mean, remember how many weird looks you'd get if you were muskie or pike fishing or something like that.
Right.
And now you can go buy a line right for it. You can buy the Echo Muskie and just have the tool for the job. You don't have to hodgepodge it together and stuff. So it's so cool to see that. And it's not like you used to have to throw down for that stuff. Niche stuff now is so friendly and affordable. Oh, you want a spay rod? Okay, here's one for $300. Oh, you want a muskie rod? $300.
So
it's not,
is it really more affordable?
Ooh, good question.
Right?
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
I don't know.
This is
I don't
kinda
know.
gonna
Trend
open
in
up
prices
Seems that way in my short time.
When I first started fishing, you have a 5-weight for trout, and you have an 8-weight for salmon and steelhead.
Yep.
And then if you went saltwater fishing, you probably had a 10 or 12 weight, or 11 or 12 weight for like tarpon.
Sure.
So you had fewer rods because there weren't as many rods out there designed for these specific things. So you had this mediocre rod that was a 5-weight that you could get away with throwing dry flies with, and you could get away with nymphing, and you could throw small streamers. But now all these different things have opened up, and then the design with the rods, now we have streamer-specific rods, salt-specific rods, dry fly-specific rods, creek-specific rods.
Not to mention the fly lines. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So,
Have you noticed over time, like, generally more expensive, less expensive? Like,
generally less expensive.
wow.
The thing of it is, though, like, with all that being said, man, when I go to fish, like, blue lining, I'm taking a creek rod. It's way better than that.
Way better.
1 5-weight that you had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm going to go, swing spay rods, well, I'm not going to use my 8-weight with like this cumbersome line and try and swing up single-handed. I'm going to take a switch rod or a spay rod and do it that way. I can, and if I wanted to still do it single-handedly, I've got single-handed lines that are specifically designed for those. So if you think, these manufacturers, they've done an incredible job.
Yeah.
If you really take a step back and look at the big picture of rod and line companies and the technology they have introduced to us as anglers, it's pretty amazing.
It truly
the trends
is.
in those, not to mention reels, especially for like big game type stuff, anything salmon, steelhead.
Anglers are better equipped than ever before.
Unbelievable.
And have the tools to do very specific things.
I feel awesome. Like with that type of, tool, your satisfaction increases. You want to do it more, right?
It's fun to use.
It is fun to use.
It's fun. It's fun when you have something that works well, doesn't it?
Right.
So
I don't have the time reference to know better, but it seems like the quality of the technology, like if you're starting out with an entry-level rod and then looking at the $1,000 tier, like, oh my gosh, that's super unattainable. There's some amazing rods in that $400 to $600 range that
we have outfits that are amazing.
They are
awesome stuff.
Really, really, really good.
There are great rods under $200 still.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's crazy.
When you think of, the comparison in economy, those like 1970s money versus money now.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's pretty crazy.
Well, I think we could talk about trends all day long.
Oh my gosh, there's so many we didn't talk about.
You know,
You're kind of a trendsetter, though, Matt.
no,
Not really.
no.
Yeah, you are, Matt.
Come on.
Don't you be bashful.
You should all see the look in Joe's face right now. He's just trying not to die laughing, telling me this. So, but maybe we revisit this. If there's trends you want to hear more about, we'd love to talk about them. You know, let us know. Like Brian knows a ton of people. We know the shop is connected to people that
let us know
have
what you
been
want to
a
listen to.
part of this progression of this sport. If you're curious about something, we'd love to, find a way to get you more info about it. We love podcast episode ideas. So it's time, gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
For lightning round.
Bum, bum, bum.
Get ready.
You only have to pay for half your seat because you're only going to need the edge. Remember the Sunday.
That was
Motor
really
City
good. I like
Speedway.
that. Oh, Joe
Okay.
looked like he had something
I think
really. He's on the look at how on the edge he is.
All
right.
I got him excited.
I'm
right.
so pumped up right
So
now, Brian.
pumped up. Funny
So,
colors.
Brian and Joe, what is your what was a trend that you loved that now has just faded away and isn't around anymore? I'm curious.
Big wheels.
Oh, Big Wheel's a good one. You can buy adult size ones now.
Oh, those trikes. You don't like those, dude? Those are awesome. I wish that. Yeah.
No, let's see. We're talking fly fishing, right?
No, and thing we liked that you wish was more popular.
Vests. Yeah. Yeah, I think vests are great, and they don't get their time in the sun.
I could agree with that. Brian, are you sticking with Big Wheel?
Oh man, the favorite trend that went away: glacier glasses.
Ooh, that was a left field, and I love it. I love it.
Well, the thing of it is, when I used to always fish with them because they would seal out any light. And I know SunCloud kind of came out with them, but they're a little bit too big. But I think something along those lines. Heavy side shields for the glasses. Whenever you buy a pair of Smiths, you could buy like the neoprene sides that would slide on.
Mm-hmm.
Then you didn't have to look. You could take them off. So then when you're out to eat or whatever, you didn't have to look like a complete dork. But they got the job
Like
done.
a reverse
on
sea
the
biscuit
street.
or something like that.
I don't know.
Reverse.
What?
Like the horse blinders or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's reversed. Don't ask me about that.
Okay.
Oh, can I change my answer though?
Sure.
I love the trend of getting away from trout purism.
Oh,
I
good one,
I
Joe. That's
love
great.
that warm water stuff is like trend of like fly fishing is being like
Is only for trout. Right.
and that is getting broken down.
I don't
year
think
by
you
year by
understood
year.
my question, but
I think
I
that's
still
the way-
like it.
It's a trend of
It's a trend that went away.
too trout heavy.
Oh,
trout
okay.
heavy.
I don't
Yeah.
understand my own question. Is what you're telling me.
No, it's okay. It's
I
a
wrote
bit of a
these
reach.
a
Let's be
little
honest here for me.
confusing.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite thing is like seeing it become accessible and being promoted of people enjoying the sport in the way that they like in the environment that they have available to them. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
make it more accessible, make it more fun, take the pressure and the
Let's
seriousness
make fly
off.
fishing fun.
It needs to be fun.
Right. It needs to be fun.
Needs to be fun. All right, boys. Something that you're happy has gone away.
Oh yeah, I did misread that, huh?
It's okay. Joe already answered this. So, Brian.
Oh, what was?
I have another one.
Okay.
Go for it.
You go.
It's not all the way away, but you do see more of a push for it. It's got a long ways to go, but I am hopeful. The fishing for numbers. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
are still fishing for numbers and trying to catch as many as possible.
But that does seem to fade.
You're starting to see people come out and criticize that more strongly and more regularly, and I like that.
Yeah.
My trend I was happy to see fade is definitely Tinkara.
Yeah.
But
Those silly flies. I'm
That was
sorry.
kinda silly.
But, yeah, no.
yeah.
We are human. We're fallible.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
What about you?
Gosh. Trend that I was happy to see go away. And I have so many pet peeves, but it's
Neoprene
that
waders?
was sadly that was not.
Neoprene waders, for example.
In August?
Oh yeah, I That's the coolest thing you can do is
no shirt,
no
neoprene
belt,
waders.
neoprene waders.
That's pretty hot.
Crush some salmon.
That is
It's pretty good.
Set to a height right below mid chest.
Trend
We're
that
gonna shoot a video of you doing that.
Here's a trend I'm hoping starts to go away.
Hit the water, guys.
I'm hoping this trend starts to go away is feeling the need to buy a boat.
Ooh.
Because I think that was a thing where, you get in and like you just get convinced. We talked about this earlier. We see guides in boats, we see everyone else in boats, and we think to catch fish we need a boat. And I'm hoping that there's a trend of people getting back to wade fishing.
Yeah,
I
absolutely
love wade fishing. You feel more connected, not necessarily more, but you feel a different connection in the water and with the fish you're targeting. And
you're definitely more connected.
It's awesome. I'm been working on that. I waded a lot more than I have this past year, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it. So that's mine.
That's a great one.
Hot
man.
take.
Yeah.
Wade a little faster downstream. You're basically in a boat.
Whoa.
Yeah, just wear your water wings too. Yeah, it'll be good.
But how can you fish
Couple
dry flies
floaties?
walking down?
That breaks one of my rules though.
Well, I'm usually fishing for carp when I'm doing that, and live lining some fish while I'm doing this. Just
It's
kidding.
like
It just went off the dark end.
This
I'm
is
getting
just
slap happy, guys.
BS and
right, have a good
ASMR
night,
at
everybody.
the same time. So we're gonna wrap up because that was fun.
That was fun.
All
I'm
right,
exhausted.
so thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, if you haven't done so, I just found out about this. You can actually rate us. So be kind.
Yeah, we're
Be
not
kind, rewind.
professionals. We're not paid.
We're just here to have fun and talk
We're just
fishing.
here to have
so
fun.
thank you so much, everybody. Again, if you've got ideas or questions, reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners, and it's just fun having people come in the shop saying, hey, thanks for that tip, or we listen. So I know we all enjoy that.
Yeah, keep the questions coming on.
So
in.
Brian, thanks
We'll
for
get
joining
back at
us. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And
Keep letting us know when you listen. 'cause
Yeah.
it feels really good to hear from people listening.
It does.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
And we'll see everybody on the next one.
All right.